The metal towers rose from the ground like frozen lightning. Each one stood taller than any building humans ever made. They pierced the sky and disappeared into the clouds above. At night, they glowed with a cold blue light that never dimmed. The people of Earth learned to hate that light. It meant the Crithians were watching. They were always watching. 15 years had passed since the ships arrived. Nobody forgot that day. The sky had filled with vessels so large they blocked out the sun. Cities fell into shadow. People looked up and knew their world had changed forever. The Crithians did not come to talk. They came to rule. The first year was the worst. Armies tried to fight. Tanks rolled through streets. Missiles flew toward the alien ships. Nothing worked. The Crithian shields turned every weapon into dust. Their own weapons cut through buildings like paper. Within months, every government surrendered. Earth belonged to the Empire now. Commander Zarthek stood in his command center high above the planet. Through the wide windows, he could see the curve of Earth below. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds. It looked peaceful from up here. He knew better. Down there, 8 billion humans lived under his control. They followed the rules because they were afraid. Fear was a good tool. It kept order. The commander walked to his desk. Screens covered the walls around him. Each one showed a different city. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai. His soldiers patrolled every street. The humans knew to stay inside after dark. They knew not to gather in groups. They knew not to break the rules. Breaking rules meant punishment. Public punishment. The Crithians made sure everyone could see what happened to those who disobeyed. Zarthex touched a screen. It showed the city of Chicago. Gray buildings stretched in every direction. People walked quickly through the streets with their heads down. Good. They looked properly afraid. He watched a patrol of his soldiers march past a crowd. The humans stepped back. They pressed themselves against walls. They did not make eye contact. This was how it should be. In one of those gray buildings, the Martinez family prepared their evening meal. The apartment was small. 2 rooms and a kitchen. The walls were thin. You could hear everything the neighbors did. Maria Martinez stirred a pot on the stove. The smell of beans and rice filled the air. It was not much. Food rations never gave them enough. But it was warm. It was home. Her husband, Carlos, sat at the table. His hands were rough from factory work. Every day he assembled parts for Crithian machines. He did not know what the machines did. Nobody asked questions anymore. You did your work. You took your pay. You went home. That was life now. Their daughter Sophia played on the floor with a small doll. She was 8 years old. She had never known a world without the Crithians. To her, the metal towers were normal. The blue lights at night were normal. The soldiers in the streets were normal. She did not remember freedom because she never had it. Sophia hummed a song as she played. It was a simple tune her mother taught her. Maria watched her daughter and felt her heart break a little. This child deserved better. She deserved to play outside without fear. She deserved to laugh loudly. She deserved to dream of a future. Instead, she lived in a cage with invisible bars that covered the whole world. Carlos looked at his wife. They did not need to speak. He saw the same pain in her eyes that lived in his chest. But what could they do? People who resisted disappeared. Sometimes their families disappeared too. The Crithians did not believe in mercy. They believed in control. Across the city, in a basement beneath an old bookstore, 5 people sat in darkness. They kept their voices low. The walls had ears. Maybe literally. Nobody knew how much the Crithians could hear. Sarah-chan led this cell of the resistance. Before the invasion, she planned military operations. She was a strategist. She understood warfare. Now she planned small acts of defiance that barely mattered. They had tried fighting in the beginning. It did not work. Bullets bounced off Crithian armor. Bombs could not penetrate their shields. Every attack led to brutal reprisals. The aliens would lock down entire neighborhoods. They would line people up in the streets. They would choose random victims to make examples. After a few years, most resistance cells gave up. What was the point? You could not win against technology that advanced. Sarah refused to stop. Not because she thought they could win. She knew they could not. But she refused to accept that this was permanent. Somewhere in her mind, she held on to a dream that one day things would change, that one day humanity would find a way. The man next to her spoke. His name was James. He used to teach engineering. Now he fixed broken equipment in a recycling plant. He said they should focus on gathering information, learn how Krithian technology worked, study their weapons, their shields. Maybe they could find a weakness. The others nodded. It was not much of a plan, but it was something. Back on the orbital station, Zarthex finished reading reports from his sector commanders. Everything appeared normal. Crime rates stayed low. Production quotas were met. There had been no significant incidents in months. The humans were learning their place. Good, he preferred it this way. Violence was messy. Fear was clean. He had conquered 17 planets before Earth. Some species fought until extinction. Others surrendered immediately. Humans fell somewhere in between. They resisted at first. Then they broke. Now they obeyed. It was the natural order of things. Strong species ruled, weak species served. The Empire had existed for thousands of years on this principle. It would exist for thousands more. Zarthex did not hate humans. He did not think about them much at all. They were resources, like minerals mined from asteroids, like energy harvested from stars. Useful, replaceable, nothing more. The idea that they might pose a threat never entered his mind. Why would it? They had no weapons that could hurt his people. No technology that could challenge the Empire. They were conquered, finished, done. In the Martinez apartment, Sophia finished her dinner. Her parents told her to get ready for bed. She hugged them both and went to her small room. Through the window, she could see one of the metal towers. Its blue light cast shadows across her walls. She climbed into bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be the same as today. And the day after would be the same as tomorrow. This was all she knew. This was all she expected. Maria stood in the doorway watching her daughter sleep. Carlos came up behind her. He put his hand on her shoulder. They stood there in silence. Two people trying to protect their child in a world that did not care. Two people hoping for a miracle they knew would never come. The city grew quiet as curfew approached. Streets emptied. Lights went out. Only the Krithian patrols remained. Their footsteps echoed through the darkness. Their scanners swept every corner. They kept order. They maintained control. They ruled through fear, and fear they believed would last forever. They were wrong. They did not know it yet. But they were about to learn something important about humans. About what happened when you pushed them too far. About what happened when fear turned into something else. Something dangerous. Something unstoppable. The occupation continued. Earth remained under Krithian control, for now. But deep in the hearts of 8 billion people, something waited. Something the Empire did not understand. A quality that made humans different from the other species they conquered. The Krithians ruled through fear. They built their empire on intimidation and force. It worked, it always worked, until it did not. The morning started like any other. Sophia woke to the sound of her mother moving in the kitchen. The smell of weak coffee drifted through the apartment. She dressed in her gray school uniform. Every child wore the same clothes now. The Krithians said it promoted equality. Really, it just made everyone easier to track. School was different than before the occupation. The old teachers were gone. New ones taught from Krithian-approved books. History classes talked about the glory of the Empire. Math problems calculated resource extraction. Science explained why alien technology was superior. Children learned to be grateful for order. They learned to fear chaos. They learned not to ask questions. But children were still children. During breaks, they found ways to play. They made toys from scraps. They created games with simple rules. They laughed when teachers were not watching. Sophia and her friends liked to play a game with a ball made from wound cloth. It was not much, but it was theirs. That afternoon, Sophia walked home with 3 other children. The streets were mostly empty. Adults worked long hours. The few people outside moved quickly. Eyes down, purpose clear. Do not attract attention. Do not stand out. Do not give the patrols a reason to stop you. The children turned down a narrow street between 2 apartment buildings. This was a shortcut they used often. Halfway down, one of the boys pulled out the cloth ball. He tossed it to Sophia. She caught it and laughed. For a moment, she forgot about the occupation. She forgot about the rules. She was just a child playing with friends. They threw the ball back and forth. It bounced off walls. It rolled across the ground. Sophia ran after it when it got away. She was focused on the game. She did not notice she had crossed into a restricted zone. The markings on the ground were faded. Easy to miss if you were not looking carefully. She was not looking carefully. She was playing. A Crithian patrol rounded the corner at that exact moment. 3 soldiers in full armor. Their helmets covered their faces. Their weapons hummed with ready power. They saw the child in the restricted area. They saw her breaking the rules. The lead soldier was young for his species. This was his first assignment on Earth. He had been trained on proper protocols. Rule violations in restricted zones must be dealt with immediately. No warnings, no exceptions. Fear only worked if consequences were certain. He raised his weapon. Sophia turned around. She saw the soldiers. She saw the weapon pointed at her. Her eyes went wide. She dropped the ball. It rolled away. She opened her mouth to speak, to apologize, to explain she did not mean to break the rules. The words never came. The weapon fired. The sound was sharp and quick, like breaking glass. Then silent. Sophia fell. Her small body hit the ground. Blood pooled beneath her. The other children screamed. They ran. The soldiers did not chase them. There was no need. The protocol had been followed. The violation had been addressed. They called it in to their commander and continued their patrol. An old woman watched from a window 3 floors up. Her hands shook as she pulled out an ancient phone. It was forbidden to own such devices. She kept it hidden for years. Never used it. Too afraid. But now she turned it on. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons. She recorded what she saw. The soldiers walking away. The small body lying still. The blood on the ground. Then she shut the phone off and hid it again. The children ran to their homes, crying, screaming. They told their parents what happened. Word spread through the building, then to the next building, then across the neighborhood. People gathered in quiet groups, speaking in whispers. A child was dead. An innocent child, shot for nothing, for playing, for being in the wrong place, for being alive. Maria Martinez was at work when she heard. A coworker pulled her aside, told her in a broken voice, told her to go home. Maria did not remember the walk. One moment she was at the factory. The next she was running through streets. Her heart pounded. Her breath came in gasps. Let it be wrong. Please let it be wrong. Please let it be someone else's daughter. Anyone else's daughter. She found Carlos already there. He stood over their daughter's body. His face was empty. Shock had taken everything from his expression. Maria fell to her knees beside Sophia. She gathered the small body in her arms. She rocked back and forth, making sounds that were not quite words, just pain-given voice. A crowd formed. People came from everywhere. They stood in a circle around the family. Nobody spoke. What words existed for this? A Crithian transport arrived to remove the body. The crowd did not move. They stood like a wall. The soldiers got out. They raised their weapons. Still the crowd did not move. For the first time in 15 years, humans did not back down. The soldiers called for reinforcements. More troops arrived. The crowd grew larger. Hundreds now, then thousands. They filled the street. They spilled into adjacent blocks. All standing. All silent. All refusing to move. The Crithians did not know what to do. Their protocols did not cover this. Fire on a crowd? That could spark a riot. Pull back? That showed weakness. They chose to wait. The old woman with the phone made a choice. She sent the video to everyone she knew. They sent it to everyone they knew. Within an hour, the footage spread across the entire city. Within 3 hours, it reached every continent. Underground networks that had been quiet for years suddenly came alive. The video passed from device to device, hand to hand, person to person. Everyone saw it. The soldiers walking away. The child lying dead. The blood on the ground. In her basement, Sarah Chen received the video on her old laptop. She watched it 3 times. Her hands curled into fists. James sat next to her. The others gathered close. They had seen Crithian cruelty before. They had witnessed countless horrors. This was different. This child could have been anyone's daughter. Anyone's sister. This was not an act of war. This was murder. Pure and simple. Sarah's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Messages poured in from resistance cells across the globe. Cells she had not heard from in years. Cells she thought were dead. All asking the same question. What do we do? How do we respond? The Crithians had made a mistake. They had given humanity something it had not had in a long time. A reason, a focus, a spark. On the orbital station, Commander Zarthex reviewed the incident report. A child violated a restricted zone. A soldier followed protocol. The child was eliminated. Standard procedure. He did not understand why Sector Command flagged it for his attention. Then he saw the crowd footage. Thousands of humans standing in the streets, not rioting, not attacking, just standing. He frowned. This was unusual, but not concerning. Humans gathered sometimes. They grieved. They would disperse soon enough. He issued a standard statement. The protocols were followed correctly. The incident is closed. No further action required. He expected this would end the matter. The Crithians always released statements after incidents. Humans always accepted them. This time felt different. He could not explain why. Something in the air had shifted. Something subtle. Something he could not quite identify. By nightfall, Maria and Carlos were allowed to take their daughter's body home. The crowd followed them back to their apartment. They stood outside the building all night, not protesting, not chanting, just being present, bearing witness, showing the family they were not alone, showing the Crithians that humans remembered, that humans cared, that this mattered. Across the world, similar crowds gathered in public squares, in parks, outside government buildings. They held candles. They said Sophia's name. They shared stories of other victims, other deaths, other cruelties that had been forgotten. The occupation had taught them to forget, to move on, to accept. But this time something was different. This time they remembered. And in remembering, something woke up. Something that had been sleeping for 15 years. Something dangerous. The Crithians studied fear. They understood how to create it, how to maintain it, how to use it. But they never studied what happened when fear reached its limit. When it transformed into something else, they never considered that humans might have a breaking point, a line that should not be crossed. They crossed that line when they killed Sofia Martinez. They just did not know it yet. 3 days after Sofia's death, something changed. It was not loud. It was not obvious. But if you knew where to look, you could see it. People walked differently. They held their heads higher. When Crithian patrols passed, some humans did not look away. Not everyone. Not even most, but enough to notice. In the basement beneath the old bookstore, Sarah Chen's laptop showed a map of the world. Red dots marked active resistance cells. 2 weeks ago, maybe 20 dots glowed on the screen. Now there were hundreds. Groups that went silent years ago were reporting back in. New groups were forming. People who never resisted before were reaching out, asking how they could help, asking what they should do. James worked on something at the table. Circuit boards, wires, pieces of salvaged technology. He had been studying Crithian equipment for years. Secretly, carefully. The aliens thought their technology was beyond human understanding. They were wrong. It was advanced. Very advanced, but not impossible to figure out. James had learned their patterns, their frequencies, their weaknesses. Sarah stood and addressed the room. 8 people now. More would come tomorrow. The cell was growing. She told them the Crithians made a mistake. Not the mistake of killing Sophia. That was evil. That was wrong. But it was not a tactical error. The real mistake was thinking humans would accept it, would move on, would forget. The aliens studied human fear. They never studied human rage. She explained what she learned over the years. The Crithians were powerful. Their shields could stop energy weapons. Their armor could deflect most projectiles. But their technology was designed to fight other advanced species. Species that fought with plasma and lasers and particle beams. Not species that still used basic kinetics. Not species that would use anything as a weapon if they were desperate enough. A woman named Teresa spoke up. She worked in a munitions factory. Well, it was a civilian factory now, making Crithian tools. But before the occupation, it made weapons. The equipment was still there. Locked away, guarded, but still there. She knew where the keys were kept. She knew the patrol schedules. She could get inside if someone helped her. An old man called Marcus added his voice. He was a communications engineer before retirement. He said the Crithian network was impressive, fast, encrypted. But it had a flaw. It relied on central hubs. Take out enough hubs and you could fragment their communications. Make it hard for them to coordinate. Make it hard for them to call for help. He could build devices to do this, given time. Given materials, Sarah listened to each person. Then she made a decision. For 15 years, the resistance tried to fight smart, tried to preserve lives, tried to avoid casualties. It did not work. You could not fight smart against an enemy this powerful. You had to fight desperate. You had to fight dirty. You had to fight like you had nothing to lose. Because they did not. Not anymore. She sent messages to every resistance cell on the planet. A simple message: prepare. Study your targets. Gather your resources. Wait for the signal. When it comes, strike everywhere at once. Overwhelm them. Confuse them. Make them afraid. Show them that humans were not the weak species they thought we were. Across the world, people made similar plans. A doctor in Mumbai organized the hospital staff. They would sabotage Krithian medical supplies, replace medications with placebos. The aliens relied on Earth's resources. Let them learn what happened when those resources became unreliable. A teacher in London contacted former soldiers, men and women who fought in the early days, who survived, who went into hiding. It was time to come out, time to remember their training. In Tokyo, a group of hackers worked on breaking Krithian encryption. It was complex, but not unbreakable. They found patterns, exploits, ways in. They shared their findings with hackers in other cities. Knowledge spread like a virus the aliens could not detect, could not stop, could not cure. Carlos Martinez went back to work at the factory. But he was different now. Something hard had formed inside him, something cold. He watched the Krithian supervisor walk through the facility, inspecting work, demanding faster production, acting like he owned the place. He did own the place for now. Carlos made a mental note of the security systems, the guard rotations, the emergency exits, information that might be useful soon. Maria stopped crying. She had cried for 3 days straight. Now her tears were gone, replaced by something else, something that burned. She joined a group of mothers who lost children to the occupation. There were more than she expected. So many more. They met in secret. They shared stories. They made plans. The Krithians killed their children. They would pay for that, one way or another. Commander Zarthex noticed unusual patterns in the communication networks. Nothing major, just small anomalies, encrypted messages passing through civilian channels, more traffic than usual between certain nodes. He ordered his analysts to investigate. They came back with nothing concrete. Probably just humans gossiping, sharing the video of the dead child. Let them. It changed nothing. The Empire was still in control, but something bothered him. A feeling he could not name. He had conquered many worlds. He recognized certain patterns, certain moments. There was a phase that happened sometimes. After initial resistance failed, after the occupied species accepted their fate. A quiet phase, a compliant phase. Earth had been in that phase for years. Until now. Now it felt different. Like the quiet before a storm. He called a meeting with his senior commanders. Told them to increase patrols, tighten security, watch for signs of organized resistance. They nodded. They followed orders, but they did not really understand his concern. Humans were weak. Their weapons were primitive. What threat could they possibly pose? Zarthex wanted to agree, wanted to dismiss his unease. But he had survived this long by trusting his instincts, and his instincts said something was coming. Sarah Chen set a date. 3 weeks from now. That would give cells enough time to prepare, to gather weapons, to position people, to sabotage key systems. 3 weeks to turn scattered groups into a coordinated force. It was not much time, but they did not have the luxury of waiting. The longer they delayed, the more chance the Krithians would discover their plans. James finished his device. A small box with a simple switch. When activated, it would emit a pulse that disrupted Krithian shields for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds was not long, but it was enough. Enough for a bullet to pass through. Enough for an explosive to detonate. Enough to show the aliens they were not invincible. He made 12 more devices, sent the plans to other cells. They could make their own. Teresa got access to the old munitions factory. It took careful planning, forged documents, bribed guards, one dangerous trip in the middle of the night. But she got in. The weapons were there, thousands of rifles, millions of rounds, grenades, explosives, all covered in dust, all forgotten. She took what she could carry, hid it in 3 different locations, came back the next night, And the night after that, Marcus built his communication jammers. Simple devices, crude by Crithian standards, but effective. Place them near enough to a hub, and they would scramble signals for a mile in every direction. He built 20, distributed them to trusted people in the city. They would activate them all at once. When the signal came, when the moment arrived, all over the world similar preparations happened. A mechanic in Berlin modified civilian vehicles, added hidden compartments for weapons, reinforced frames, protected fuel tanks, created a fleet of improvised combat vehicles. A chemist in Cairo synthesized compounds that could eat through Crithian armor. Slow, but effective. A pilot in São Paulo repaired old aircraft, jets that had been grounded for years. They would fly again. One last time. The resistance grew every day. People who spent years hiding, years being afraid, years accepting the occupation. They remembered who they were, what they were capable of. They remembered that humans did not just survive. Humans fought, even when the fight seemed impossible, even when the odds were overwhelming, even when common sense said to give up. Humans kept fighting. Sophia's face became a symbol. Her picture spread everywhere, drawn on walls, printed on hidden flyers, shared on underground networks. She represented every victim, every person killed by the occupation, every dream crushed, every future stolen. The Crithians tried to suppress the images. They failed. You could not suppress an idea whose time had come, and the time had come. 2 weeks before the planned uprising, Sarah received a message from a cell in Antarctica. Even there, in the most remote part of the planet, humans were preparing. Even there, people were ready to fight. She smiled. A cold smile. A dangerous smile. The Crithians thought they conquered Earth. They were wrong. They occupied it. They controlled it. But they never truly conquered it. You could not conquer the human spirit. You could only make it angry. The countdown had begun. Soon the Crithians would learn something important, something other conquered species never taught them. You could rule humans through fear. For a while, maybe even for years. But eventually, inevitably, that fear would transform. It would become fuel. It would become rage. It would become a weapon. And when 8 billion humans decided they had nothing left to lose, when they all moved as one, when they struck with everything they had, the galaxy itself would tremble. The signal went out at exactly 300 Greenwich Mean Time. A simple code phrase broadcast across every resistance channel. 3 words. For Sofia Martinez. That was all it took. In every time zone, in every country, in every city, humans moved into action. Sarah Chen activated her jammer. Around Chicago, 19 others did the same. The Crithian communication network fractured. Sectors went dark. Commands could not reach troops. Troops could not report back to command. In the confusion, Teresa and her team struck the local garrison. They used James's shield disruptors. 3 seconds of vulnerability. 3 seconds to put bullets through alien armor. The garrison fell in 10 minutes. Across the Atlantic, London erupted. Former soldiers came out of hiding. They moved like they never forgot how. Precise, coordinated, deadly. They hit power stations that fed Crithian facilities, weapons depots, vehicle pools. Each target chosen carefully. Each strike timed perfectly. The aliens scrambled to respond. But their communication was dead. Their coordination was gone. They fought as individuals. They died as individuals. In Tokyo, the hackers launched their virus. It spread through Crithian systems like wildfire. Security doors opened. Defense turrets shut down. Shields flickered and failed. The aliens had trusted their technology. Never imagined humans could break it. That trust killed them. Resistance fighters poured through open doors. They took weapons from armories. They freed prisoners from detention centers. They took back their city block by block. Mumbai's hospital staff executed their plan. Crithian wounded received treatment, but the medicines were wrong. Painkillers that did nothing. Antibiotics that made infections worse. The aliens who could fight were at the front. The ones in hospital beds died slowly, quietly, without anyone noticing until it was too late. Commander Zarthek stood in his command center watching chaos unfold. Every screen showed fighting. New York, Paris, Moscow, Beijing, Sydney. Every major city on the planet, all at once. How was this possible? Humans were disorganized, primitive, afraid. Yet somehow they coordinated a global assault. Somehow they breached Crithian defenses. Somehow they were winning. He tried to call his fleet. Get reinforcements. Crush this rebellion before it spread further. But his communication officer reported all channels were jammed. Not blocked, jammed. Crude human technology disrupting sophisticated Crithian systems. It should not work. It was working. He ordered his personal guard to prepare for combat. If humans wanted war, he would give them war, but war did not come to him. Not yet. The humans were smart. They knew they could not take the orbital station directly. So they cut it off, destroyed the shuttle bays on the surface, sabotaged the docking ports, eliminated every way for reinforcements to reach orbit or for troops to return to Earth. The station was isolated, a fortress floating in space, powerful, but alone. On the ground, Carlos Martinez fought. He never trained as a soldier, never held a gun before tonight. But rage made him focused. Grief made him fearless. He moved with a group from his factory, workers who became warriors. They knew the industrial sector better than any Crithian, knew every shortcut, every hiding spot, every place to ambush patrols. They used crude weapons, pipe bombs, Molotov cocktails, hunting rifles from before the occupation. Nothing fancy, but they used them well. A Crithian transport rounded a corner. Carlos threw a bottle filled with homemade explosive. It shattered against the vehicle's engine. Fire erupted. The transport crashed. Aliens stumbled out. They did not stumble far. Maria fought too, with the other mothers who lost children. They were not soldiers. They were not trained. But they were determined. They struck supply convoys, poisoned water supplies, set fires in storage facilities. Every loss weakened the occupation. Every success inspired more resistance. The Crithians never prepared for this. Never imagined humans would fight so dirty, so desperately, so effectively. In São Paulo, the old aircraft took off. Modified fighters from the last generation, slow by modern standards, primitive by alien standards. But they flew, and they carried missiles. Missiles with modified guidance systems. Missiles that could lock onto Crithian signatures. The aliens never worried about human air power. They controlled the skies. Until tonight. Tonight the sky belonged to everyone. The fighters hit Crithian patrol ships, shot them down, strafed ground positions, created chaos. The aliens scrambled their own aircraft. Superior ships, better weapons. But the human pilots flew like they had nothing to lose. They rammed when they ran out of missiles. They crashed into targets when their planes were too damaged to fly. Suicide tactics, desperate tactics, effective tactics. Berlin's mechanized force rolled out. Civilian vehicles turned into war machines. They were not pretty. They were not standard, but they worked. Heavy trucks with mounted guns, buses with armor plating, even delivery vans carrying troops. They moved through streets reclaimed from the Crithians. They provided mobile support, mobile firepower, mobile hope. The chemist in Cairo distributed his compound. It came in spray bottles, simple, portable, deadly. Resistance fighters sprayed it on Crithian armor. At first, nothing happened. Then the armor began to dissolve. Slowly, but surely, aliens tried to remove their suits. Too late. The compound reached skin. The screams could be heard blocks away. Zarthex watched casualty reports flood in. Hundreds of his soldiers dead, thousands wounded, communications still jammed, reinforcements still blocked. He did not understand. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to fear the Empire. They were supposed to accept their place. Instead, they fought like demons. They sacrificed without hesitation. They died without surrender. His tactical officer suggested retreat. Pull forces back to fortified positions, regroup. Wait for the rebellion to burn itself out. Zarthex almost agreed. Then he remembered his training. Never show weakness. Never retreat. The Empire did not run from primitives. He ordered his forces to hold, to fight. To demonstrate Crithian superiority. It was a mistake. His last mistake. The fighting continued through the morning. By noon, humans controlled large sections of every major city. The Crithians held strategic points, government buildings, power stations, their own facilities, but they were surrounded, cut off, running low on ammunition, low on supplies, low on options. Sarah Chen received reports from around the world. The uprising was succeeding beyond expectations. Losses were heavy. Thousands of humans died in the first hours. But tens of thousands of Krithians died too. The aliens were better equipped, better trained. But humans had numbers and rage, had a willingness to trade lives for victory. She sent new orders. Press the advantage. Do not let them regroup. Do not give them time to adapt. Keep attacking. Keep moving. Keep fighting. The resistance had maybe 72 hours before the Krithian Empire sent its full military. Before real warships arrived, before the fleet came to crush them. They needed to break the occupation before that happened. They needed to win now. Night fell on a changed world. Cities burned. Smoke filled the air. Bodies littered streets, both human and alien. But the fighting did not stop. It intensified. Humans attacked with renewed energy. They fought in darkness, used it, became it. The Krithians had advanced night vision, thermal imaging. It did not matter. You could not see determination. You could not thermal scan rage. You could not armor against desperation. Carlos stood over a fallen Krithian soldier. The alien's helmet was cracked. Through it, Carlos could see a face. Not so different from a human face, eyes, nose, mouth. The soldier was young, probably frightened, probably just following orders. Carlos thought of Sophia. His hand tightened on his weapon. Orders did not matter. Youth did not matter. Nothing mattered except making them pay. Making them all pay. By dawn of the second day, the tide had clearly turned. The Krithians still fought, but they fought defensively, retreating, consolidating, losing ground with every hour. On the orbital station, Zarthex made a decision. Call the fleet. Admit failure. Request immediate military intervention. It wounded his pride. But pride meant nothing if the entire occupation collapsed. He sent the distress signal, then waited for a response. Hours passed. Nothing came. He tried again. Still nothing. Then he understood. The humans had not just jammed local communications. They found a way to block interstellar signals too. He was cut off, completely. The occupation force was alone. 8,000 Krithian soldiers against 8 billion enraged humans. The mathematics were clear. The outcome was inevitable. The Empire was about to suffer its first defeat in 1,000 years. And it would happen here, on this primitive world, at the hands of this supposedly weak species. The end came on the third day. Not with a dramatic battle, not with a final stand. The Krithian occupation simply collapsed. Remaining forces surrendered or fled. Some tried to reach their ships. They did not make it. Some barricaded themselves in strongholds. Humans surrounded them, cut off their supplies, waited them out. Within 72 hours of the first attack, organized Krithian resistance ceased to exist. Sarah Chen walked through the streets of Chicago. Buildings were damaged, some destroyed completely. Bodies were being collected, human and alien both. The cost had been enormous. Early estimates suggested millions of human casualties. But the occupation was over. Earth was free. The price was acceptable. Any price would have been acceptable. She reached the Martinez apartment. Carlos and Maria stood outside. They looked older, tired, but alive. Sarah approached them. She did not know what to say. Thank you seemed wrong. Your daughter's death saved humanity. That was true but cruel. She settled for silence. Sometimes silence said more than words could. Maria spoke first. She asked if it was really over. Sarah nodded. The occupation was finished. But the war might not be. The Krithian Empire would respond eventually. They would send their real military. Warships, battle fleets, armies trained for conquest. Earth needed to prepare, needed to be ready. Maria asked how humans could possibly fight an empire that ruled 1,000 worlds. Sarah smiled. A tired smile. A knowing smile. The same way they fought the occupation. Together. Desperate. With nothing to lose. On the orbital station, Commander Zarthex sat in the ruins of his command center. Human forces breached it 3 hours ago. They captured him without a fight. He was too shocked to resist. Too confused. How did this happen? His species conquered worlds for millennia. They perfected the art of occupation. They knew how to break resistance, how to maintain control. Yet somehow humans defeated them. Primitives with crude weapons and desperate tactics. It made no sense. Sarah Chen entered the command center. She came to the station to verify it was secure. To ensure no Krithians could call for help, she found the commander sitting alone. staring at dark screens. She approached him. He looked up. His expression held genuine confusion. He asked how humans achieved the impossible, how they coordinated globally, how they broke through Crithian defenses, how they won. Sarah pulled out a picture. Sofia Martinez, 8 years old, smiling, alive before. She held it up for the commander to see. She told him this was how. This child, this one innocent child. He killed her. Well, his soldier did, following protocols, maintaining order, ruling through fear. He thought humans would accept it, move on, forget. He was wrong. She explained something the Empire never understood. Humans feared many things: death, pain, loss. The Crithians built their entire strategy on that fear. But they missed something crucial. Humans feared for themselves. But they feared for their children more, much more. You could threaten a human and they might comply. You could hurt them and they might submit. But hurt their children? Kill their children? That changed everything. That turned fear into fury. That transformed victims into warriors. The commander looked at the picture, then at Sarah. He said one child could not possibly inspire a global uprising. Sarah laughed. A bitter sound. He still did not understand. It was not one child. Sophia was the final child, the last straw. But she represented millions of victims, millions of injustices. 15 years of occupation, 15 years of fear, 15 years of waiting for something to change. Sophia's death did not create the resistance. It awakened it. She told him about human history, how her species fought wars that lasted generations, how they resisted occupations that seemed permanent, how they overthrew empires that appeared invincible. The Crithians studied human fear. They should have studied human stubbornness, human resilience, human refusal to accept defeat. Those qualities were more dangerous than any weapon. Zarthex asked what would happen now. Sarah said he would be sent back to his empire, with a message. Earth was closed to Crithian expansion. Any attempt to return would be met with total war. Not a war of armies, not a war of fleets, a war of extinction. Humans would build weapons specifically designed to kill Crithians. They would hunt them across the galaxy if necessary. They would never stop, never surrender, never forgive. The commander said the Empire would never accept such terms. Sarah shrugged. Then the Empire would learn the same lesson he learned, that humans were not weak, not primitive, not easily conquered. They were dangerous, especially when protecting their young, especially when they had nothing left to lose, especially when you gave them a reason to unite. She left him there, alone with his thoughts, his failure, his shame. Guards would take him to a transport soon, send him home, let him explain to his superiors how he lost an entire planet, how a species they considered inferior defeated them, how the Empire's reputation for invincibility died on Earth. Back on Earth, the rebuilding began. Cities needed repair. Infrastructure needed restoration. Governments needed reformation. The dead needed burial. The wounded needed care. It would take years, maybe decades, but humans had time now. They had freedom. They had hope. The cost was terrible, but the alternative was worse. Permanent slavery, eternal fear, forgotten humanity. Carlos and Maria held a small ceremony for Sophia. Just family, a few friends. They buried her in a cemetery outside the city. On her gravestone they carved simple words. She was loved. She is remembered. She changed everything. Other families held similar ceremonies for other victims, other children, other lives cut short by the occupation. The graves stretched for miles, a testament to the cost of freedom, a reminder of why they fought. In the following months, Sarah worked with other resistance leaders. They formed a new global government, one focused on defense, on unity, on ensuring occupation never happened again. They studied captured Crithian technology, reverse-engineered it, improved it. Humanity had been behind. That was changing. Fast. James continued his work, but now with unlimited resources. He led teams of scientists and engineers. They built weapons that could challenge alien shields, ships that could travel between stars, defenses that could protect the planet. Earth would never be vulnerable again, never be caught unprepared. The Crithians taught them a valuable lesson. The galaxy was not safe. Trust was fatal. Strength was survival. News of Earth's victory spread through underground channels. Other occupied worlds heard the story. A primitive species defeated the Crithian Empire, threw off their chains, reclaimed their freedom. It inspired rebellions on a dozen planets. The Empire suddenly faced resistance everywhere. Their forces were stretched thin. Their reputation was damaged. Fear no longer worked like it used to. The Crithian High Council met to discuss the Earth situation. Some wanted immediate retaliation, send the full fleet, crush humanity, make an example. Others urged caution. Earth had proven more dangerous than expected. Maybe it was better to leave them alone. Focus on more compliant worlds. The debate lasted weeks. Eventually, they made a decision. Add Earth to the forbidden list. Mark it as too costly to conquer. Avoid future contact. Let humanity have their little planet. For now. But they added a note to the database. A warning for future commanders. Humans were unpredictable. They appeared weak but fought with unexpected ferocity. They could be controlled through fear. But only up to a point. Push them too far and they transformed. Became something else. Something dangerous. Something that would not stop fighting until either they were dead or you were. The note included a specific warning. Never harm their young. Human parents would sacrifice everything for their children. Would fight impossible odds. Would choose death over submission if their offspring were threatened. This was their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. Exploit it at your own risk. Better to avoid it entirely. On Earth, years passed. The scars of occupation faded slowly. New generations grew up hearing stories of the uprising, of Sophia Martinez, of the day humanity said no. The day fear turned into rage. The day 8 billion people moved as one. Children learned these stories in school. They visited memorials. They understood the cost of freedom. They vowed to protect it. Carlos and Maria lived quiet lives. They never spoke much about Sophia, the pain was too great. But they kept her memory alive in other ways. They started a foundation. It helped families who lost children. It funded education. It promoted peace. But it also promoted strength, readiness, vigilance. Peace was good, but only if you were strong enough to protect it. Sarah Chen eventually retired from government. She wrote a book about the resistance, about the uprising, about what humans were capable of when pushed beyond their limits. It became required reading for military academies, for politicians, for anyone who needed to understand the human spirit. The book ended with a simple truth. Humans could be gentle, could be peaceful, could be kind, but threaten their children and they became something else entirely, something you did not want to face. The galaxy learned this lesson slowly. Species that considered humans weak discovered their mistake. Species that tried to threaten Earth faced unified resistance. Species that harmed human children disappeared from history. Humanity had been the victim once. They refused to be victims again. They built a reputation, not of aggression,